When your dog's mouth snaps shut and nostrils flare intensely, their brain has just muted every single piece of auditory information.
Are you walking your dog, or are you being dragged by a brain that has lost 99% of its hearing?
This olfactory lock-on state is the silent warning signal that occurs 1 to 3 seconds before an explosive high-speed chase. This nose-first processor forces the brain to reallocate resources away from sight and sound to prioritize deep chemical data stream analysis. Watch the right nostril carefully. If it flares first, your dog is currently processing a potentially threatening or brand new stimulus. The right brain hemisphere handles new or dangerous information, which is physically manifested through the activation of the right nasal wing. Forcing a dog to approach while the right nostril is dominant will likely trigger a defensive reaction or a sudden conflict. The shift to the left nostril signifies the dog has identified the scent as familiar, safe, or no longer a threat. Identifying this sub-second shift allows you to predict exactly when your dog has finished their safety assessment of the current environment. When the mouth closes and breathing stops, the dog is in respiratory arrest, capturing every molecule of a high-value target scent. Verbal commands are useless here, because the auditory cortex is effectively offline, while the olfactory processor is running at maximum capacity.
To break this circuit, use physical touch. Tactile input triggers the somatic system, forcing the brain to release its olfactory lock.
A gentle touch on the shoulder acts as a physical interrupt, compelling the brain to acknowledge a different sensory input channel. Once the gaze breaks, you have a 2-second window to redirect the dog's energy before they lock back onto the scent. If you miss this window, the dopamine loop of the scent trail will pull them back into an unreachable state of focus. Observe the zigzagging movement. This indicates the dog is actively tracking a scent plume through the air, rather than ground sniffing. This movement pattern precedes leash pulling as the dog attempts to follow the chemical trail at a faster pace than you. Sudden sniffing of empty ground when a stranger approaches is not curiosity. It is a displacement behavior used to signal peace.
This is fake sniffing, a social tool used to reduce pressure and communicate that the dog poses no threat to others.
Notice the whale eye. The dog is sniffing the ground, but their eyes are actually tracking the approaching person sideways. Forcing the dog to say hello during this fake sniffing session breaks their peace protocol and can lead to defensive biting.
Respect the fake sniff by increasing the distance, allowing your dog to feel that their peace signal has been successfully received.
Watch for the scent lick. When a dog licks its nose after sniffing, it is moving molecules to the vomeronasal organ. This action allows the dog to taste the pheromones, providing deep information about the age and health of the other animal.
At this stage, the dog is fully immersed in a biological data download that requires significant mental energy to complete.
If the tail is wagging stiffly while the nose is glued to the ground, the dog is in a state of hyperarousal. This is not a relaxed walk. It is a dopamine-driven hunt that will lead to lunging if a visual target appears.
You must recognize the difference between decompressing sniffing and tracking sniffing to manage your dog's adrenaline levels effectively.
Decompressing sniffing is slow, with a relaxed body and ears, often occurring at the end of a long, stressful walk. This slow sniffing lowers the heart rate and helps the dog transition back into a calm, domestic state of mind. Transition from decoding to control. As tension rises, prepare a high-intensity scent to physically override the visual lock-on you just observed. When the mouth snaps shut before arrival, do not pull back. Immediately slide a pungent scent directly under their nostrils. The pungent scent of the treat forces the brain to cut the visual feed to analyze this new, immediate chemical data. As soon as the dog turns their head to investigate the scent, they have successfully broken the aggressive visual lock.
This is olfactory redirection, the technique that works because the dog's brain cannot ignore a high-intensity scent at close range.
Repeat this redirection every time you see the mouth close and the body stiffen to prevent the escalation into a bark. For dogs hyper-aroused by ground scents, we use the go sniff command to turn sniffing into a controlled reward.
By making the scent a reward, you retune the role of the gatekeeper to the most reinforcing activity in their world.
Ask for a simple behavior, like a sit or look, before pointing to a patch of grass and saying, "Go sniff." This structure prevents the dog from dragging you, as they learn that sniffing only happens when the leash is slack.
If the dog begins to pull, stop immediately and wait for the nose to lift before moving forward again.
The moment the dog looks back at you, they have disconnected from the olfactory loop and are ready to listen again. Instead of battling leash tension, stop and wait for the nose to lift, then reward them with a go sniff command. 15 minutes of concentrated sniffing is more exhausting for a dog's brain than a 1-hour walk around the neighborhood. Controlled sniffing prevents hyperarousal, breaking the dopamine-driven hunt and allowing the dog's brain to settle into a focused, calm state. For dogs that struggle with right nostril reactivity, practice scent introduction in a neutral, wide-open space. Distance is your best friend. It allows the dog to process the scent without the pressure of an immediate encounter. As the Great Dane begins to sniff with its left nostril, you can slowly decrease the distance to the object. If the mouth closes again, you have moved too fast. Back away until the dog starts panting or sniffing calmly. Respecting the Reimerian's limits builds trust, showing your dog that you understand their internal state better than anyone else. On rainy days, scents are amplified, which can lead to higher arousal levels for dogs that are already scent sensitive. Shorten your walks on wet days and focus on mental sniffing indoors to prevent overstimulation and leash frustration. A snuffle mat mimics the natural foraging behavior, providing a healthy outlet for the dog's need to process complex scents. Watch the rhythmic movement of the nose. This is the sign of a brain in a flow state of processing. After 10 minutes, the dog will often take a deep breath and lie down, a signal of complete mental satisfaction. This is the goal: a dog that has had its primary processor satisfied through structured, intentional olfactory engagement. Your dog's nose is the remote control to their brain. If you don't learn to read it, you'll never lead. From the right nostril warning to the fake sniff plea, every breath they take is a message meant for you. Stop fighting the nose and start using it to build a deeper, more silent connection with your best friend. Look for the lock-on, respect the space, and always remember that the nose always knows the truth before you do.